Well, for one final time, this series we're with Nick Jones of Throgmorton Associates for our Ask the Experts. And Nick, since we got together last time, we've got a new government, we've had a general election, about 140 odd bills in the King's speech. It went on forever, didn't it?
Yes.
I guess the pensions bill is the most important thing from your point of view, isn't it? Is there anything we need to know or do about that at the moment?
Yeah, it was. Well, you're right. It was an opportunity for the new administration to share their thoughts, their guidance on what's going to be coming through, what's important to them, and then what's going to be important to us going forward. The pension bill itself wasn't necessarily expected to be included, but there's a lot more in there than we actually anticipated, which is great. Not too many new things, to be fair. A lot of the things that had been mooted before have been carried through, like making it easier to find previous pensions, making it easier to transfer around smaller pots, encouraging people to save more, which has got to be a good thing. Looking at making sure that there's a measure on the costs that people pay for their pension planning, which is absolutely ideal, because the less you pay, the more will be in the pot, depending on performance, obviously. And there's always going to be a need for advice. So it's an interesting one, but no massive changes. But there will be future reviews as well, going on things like the auto-enrolment systems and how that all works, who can be a member. At the moment, you're not till 22. It might be that they bring that forward to 18. It might be that they get rid of the lower earnings level limit, like a band that you don't pay on the first so much money. So all of that will encourage people to pay more and save for longer, so they'll have a bigger pot at the end.
Is the general policy for all of this is to try and make it more flexible and give you back as a person more choice, presumably, as to what you actually do with your funds, and you've got more. Some of that had already happened, hadn't it? But is this taking it further?
Yeah. So Pensions Freedoms 2014-15, believe it or not, so 10 years ago now, was all about allowing people more choice to certain types of benefits at the end when they come to taking down their benefits from their previous pension planning that they put in place. The situation we have is that if you're in a gold standard pension pot, if you like, the defined contribution is where you're paying a certain amount in and you get a value at the end. Defined benefit is it's all about the number of years that you worked and your salaries, and it was linked to that. So there was less there's no investment risk. It was more about, actually, I'm going to do this number of years. I've then got a guaranteed amount of income at the end, and that's fantastic. But the options on accessing those were quite limited, and they're still quite limited.
So they're the ones that people call final salary pensions?
Yeah, final salary, absolutely right. That's it, yeah. Lots of different technology. The industry is awash with jargon, and Googling stuff sometimes just takes you down a rabbit hole somewhere else. So yeah, it's difficult, and again, that's where humans come in. But the freedoms on the sort of money purchase side, which is the ones where you build up a value and it goes up and down every year depending on the investment performance, your contributions, etc. The options at the end of that are now much more flexible for the last 10 years, and they're talking about now, as part of this pensions bill, making those sort of options available to the final salary clients as well also. So it's going to be interesting, and it's talking about the employer having to offer advice to the employees as to which is their best path. That's going to be tricky.
There's a big emphasis on employers having to learn a lot more about the pensions world. On the back of this, it occurred to me, and of course, if you're a big company and you've got a department that does all this, it's easy. But a lot of SMEs that we've got here in Shropshire, that's time-consuming and tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, even if you're a big firm, to have the resource and to have people who are going to have to be qualified in these things, and you're going to have to be a specialist, because if someone makes the wrong decision, they're going to come back at you. So you need to be qualified and authorised and regulated and have some PI insurance. So that rules out a lot of firms doing it in-house. It does mean there's going to be a need for good advice. And I can see it's working with a lot more firms going forward, because it'll be the default to have advice. And there's things like on the pensions wise, online and things where you can go on, you can put your details in, you can actually arrange a chat, a one-to-one, and they can give you guidance, but they can't necessarily give you advice as to what's best in your circumstances. And because there are so many options for a lot of people, you've still got a long list of options after a call, but you know a little bit more about what you might or might not do.
So is that potentially then going to change the kind of work that people, companies like yours do, the kind of clients that you would typically work with then?
I don't think it will. What's already happening in the industry is that there's a focus on delivering value. There's a focus on making sure you're having a positive outcome to clients and you're helping them to achieve their goals, which is absolutely fantastic. And we've been trying to do that forever, but now it's become a thing that's expected, which is brilliant. A lot of firms are struggling to get up to speed with doing that and delivering it and being able to demonstrate it. That's the difficult part sometimes. If you've helped someone to have a plan see it through over the last 15, 20 years, and now they're living the retirement or semi-retirement that you've talked about for all that time, and they're going on the holidays and they're helping the grandchildren on the housing ladder and doing all these things. They think you're fantastic and you've got a really close relationship. You're like one of the family. You go to weddings and sadly funerals and things. But actually, it's quite hard to document that. It's quite hard to think. But that's why we get out of bed, but for most of us. And it may be that there's a specific branch of advice that goes down the pensions route that works specifically with employers to talk about educating the workforce. That might be a thing. But who knows? It was only announced the other day, and the industry is still going to really come to terms with what that means to people who are going to need advice.
You've got a lot of bedtime reading to do, basically, haven't you?
Always.
All these, you must look at it and think all these bills coming in, and, oh no, more changes and more things to get my head around.
It's just a constant. It's change, isn't it? And 20 odd years with St James's Place, 28 years as an advisor. That's the constant. If you couldn't handle the fact that things are going to change in the next 6 months, you have to do something else.
Yeah. Now, listen, you mentioned about how, a key role of yours is developing a personal relationship with people and becoming part of the family, which I guess is such a key part of what you do. Brings us nicely to one of the questions that we've had. And thank you to everybody who's issued questions for Nick over the course of the series. We've had some great ones. Ironically, now we've got some more coming in. Only got one episode left. Haven't got time to ask them all. But there's two here that I wanted to look at. This one, I think, from Chris Pendle in Ludlow is particularly relevant to what you're saying about building relationships. Because Chris says, will artificial intelligence soon have the ability to predict the best investments for me and my family and remove the need to speak to real people for advice? I know what your answer's going to be, but explain.
Well, it is a great question, Chris, and something that people, sometimes tongue-in-cheek, but sometimes people are asking us now. The ability to predict markets, you can look at probability. The information's already there, so you can actually do all that without needing a computer. You probably research it on your desktop or on your phone, but actually, historical results will tell you that if you invest in certain things, the probability of having a positive outcome over certain time periods is 100%. If you're in equity portfolios, for example, over 20 years, it's something like 98% that you're going to be positive at the end of that 20 years. So that's kind of there. You don't need a computer to necessarily be guiding you with that. And where it's interesting, a lot of firms now are using AI in the back office stuff. So if systems and processes, and we talked about recording the impact that you make with clients, now being able to capture conversations and things and have a transcript of a Zoom call, for example. That's come through in the last few weeks, that we are authorised to do that sort of stuff now with client permission. So that helps us to keep the records up to date. Also, I think there was an announcement recently that St James's Place themselves are helping AI help with when people are ringing in and helping to detect if they may be vulnerable. So this is helping people to not necessarily be influenced unduly by somebody else who might be impacting on a call, or maybe encouraging them to make a withdrawal, or if they've gone through a bereavement, or they go through a divorce, or there's something seriously going on. It's helping the human who's taking the call to actually ask a few more questions or go down a different route. So, it's using AI in a positive way.
So it's more about using AI to free people like yourselves up, experts, to spend more time doing what they are qualified to do and where they can add the value and
with clients.
And because, if I'm your client, one of the most important things I guess you've got to do is gauge, what's my attitude to risk, how am I feeling, walk into a meeting.
Yeah.
Have something happened? You've got to read body language, you've got to read everything.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And you do a lot of it over the years, and you almost forget that you're doing it. And we've got some of the developing advisors that come through the academy, and they're fantastic, but they don't necessarily naturally do a lot of that stuff. They have to think about it, whereas a lot of us older guys, guys and girls in the industry, we just do it sort of naturally, and that empathy that you build and the rapport and the things you don't have to think about. I don't think we will ever be replaced by a computer system. So, for example, I've been referred to a lady, it's a mother-in-law of an existing client. The client's a lovely guy, we've known him for a long time. And sadly, his father-in-law was really poorly when he first reached out to me. He's now passed away last week, actually. Next week, I'm going to see his mother-in-law. It's going to be a tough meeting. It's going to be quite emotional, I imagine. His wife and her sister are going to be there as well, so it's family support for the mum. And it's to help her wade through whatever the hell they've got policy-wise, pensions, there's going to be investments and stuff, and it's just an oversight, or how would you deal with this, or do I need to encash that, or what?
Or what's this even? It's as basic as that, isn't it?
And I don't know, because I haven't met the lady yet, but possibly, like in a lot of couples, one of the couple is responsible for doing the day-to-day stuff, the financial stuff. The other just lets them get on with it and has very little interest. And just, are we okay? Yeah, everything's okay. Great. And they just kind of move on. So we're very much we take pride in the fact that we can help to comfort people at a bad time, provide some clarity, and it's that, that's really where we can add some real value. But also then you've got a friend for life. You're doing a great job. It makes you really referable. But you're doing it because you really enjoy doing it and you enjoy helping. Right. It's not, I've got no idea what they've got. I've got no idea if there could be any actual business in it for us. And I'm not going to because of that. I'm going because I want to help them have some clarity and help them deal with whatever the administration process is going to be with all these different providers. Because dealing with providers can be painful. And we quite often, we're writing out to providers if we're reviewing an existing policy. Can it be upgraded or not? Is there something that you're going to lose by moving? So we ask all of those sort of questions, but the time it takes on the back and forward, and sometimes there's a 30 working day turnaround on replying to a question we've asked, and you think, blimey, and trying to keep the client happy, but you're in between the administration over here, which is awful, and the client over here, who's potentially in this case grieving, and it's tricky, but a computer to do all that? Well, I don't know.
Long may the need for the use of such interpersonal skills continue. That's what I say.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, on that point as well, the industry is massive already. There's a massive need for advice. Everything's changing, as we've mentioned. We have younger people joining the industry because we've got older people retiring every year. There are older people who've been doing it for a long time who are retiring. But for example, so Ethan, our eldest, graduated this week.
I saw the pictures. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, looking very proud.
Yeah, he's done fantastic. Yeah, 2-1, Loughborough University. What's not to like? He's decided that he likes the idea of being a financial advisor. I just certainly haven't talked him out of it. I'm not worried about computers replacing the role of an advisor. I know good quality advisors will be absolutely necessary to help clients go forward. Because the more choice you have, the more advice you probably need, and the more help you need, or what's right for me. So I'm encouraging people to get in the industry, and we work with the academy guys coming through to make sure that we've got a succession plan for our advisors as eventually they'll be leaving. We're talking about Throgmorton being a 100-year business. We don't want to get to the stage where we've got no advisors left. The last one's out. You've got only so many clients you can look after individually. Yes. So we've got that continual evolution of who's looking after who and making sure they're qualified and experienced enough to have the responsibility of taking care of people. So it's a great career, a great thing to be involved with, really.
My dad wanted me to follow in his footsteps and become an electrical engineer. I was having none of it.
Right.
None of it at all. We've got time for one more question. This is from Brian, who says, this goes back to the new government, really. He says, I heard Keir Starmer in an election interview, I think it was before the election actually, suggesting that the current 25% tax-free drawdown of pensions for people over 55 isn't going to be guaranteed long term. He says, is there anything I should be doing about this, as I will be qualifying for this in about 2 years and I'm keen to activate it?
Yeah, so with Brian, with Brian being 2 years away, he must be 53 now, he's the same age as me. 55 is currently the earliest you can access it. In 2028, it's going to be 57 as the earliest you can access it. So he might be a bit nearer the deadline than he thinks. But either way, if he's not old enough now, it's not a thing.
There's no suggestion it's going to disappear altogether, though, is there, at the moment?
Not at the moment, no. There's nothing concrete on any bit, really. The pensions bill gave an outline of the direction of travel. There was talk leading up to the election and in manifestos about reviewing pensions. The industry then thinks, crikey, what could that be? So at the extreme, it's massive changes. Like, well, at the moment, your whole pension pot, if it's still in a pension pot, is inheritance tax free. So you pass away, it passes to your next of kin with no taxation on that. What that does mean is that some clients, if they've got multiple assets, they're touching the pension last. So we've got lots of clients now who might be drawing down income, maybe from ISAs and unit trust portfolios, investment bonds maybe, or trusts, and they're actually not going to touch their pensions at all, because why would they touch that if it's outside the estate already?
Taxman can't get their hands on it.
Yeah. So if that's a change, that's a big change that might come through. But it's a massive might, and it's the same with this, like with the tax-free cash, the 25%. It'd be a huge vote loser, because it would affect everybody with a pension pot, and potentially if the defined benefit side of things, if the final salary things are going to be following the same kind of logic, and the rules might get more aligned, it's going to affect everybody with a pension, and not just people with a money purchase one. So it's really hugely unpopular.
But if you're saying from 2028, the age to activate it might go up. That's no different to what the government's been doing with state pension.
Yeah.
Anyway, is it?
Yeah. And that was already sorted out by the Tories a few years ago, and widely forecast, and it is set in stone. Whereas a lot of the things with the pensions bill, with all of the previous changes, some of them, like the removal of the lifetime allowance for the overall value you're allowed for your pension pot, that hasn't actually been enacted yet, because it happened so quickly. And one of these things, well, overnight, it's now not a thing. The policymakers have got to catch up and actually put that through the courts to make it happen.
So everybody can catch up with everything that's been going on for the last 12 months a bit.
It's going to take a while, isn't it?
It is. Nick, thank you so much for everything, not just today, everything you've done this series for us. What are you doing this summer? Climbing any mountains?
This summer, no mountains, but we're going to Canada, so Toronto, Niagara, back to Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cape Cod, New York. Massive trip. Ethan graduated this year. Zane's just done his GCSEs. So big family.
Lots to celebrate.
Yeah, massive. Can't wait.
Maid of the Mist. Put your ponchos on to get the Maid of the Mist. That's great fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. We booked a jet bike. A jet boat in the rapids at Montreal. 2 of us are doing it. I'm one of them. I'm not going to tell you which of the other family members wouldn't out.
You are Shropshire's answer to Tom Cruise, aren't you? Anything like that, we'll just give it a go.
I think I'm a bit taller.
Yeah, I think you definitely are. Yeah, you are. That's why we have to do this sitting down, to be fair. Nick, have a great summer, and thanks so much for being part of our series.
Brilliant.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.